One of the first people we met back in 2008 was 29-year-old Artis Coley. He was in his car cruising down 131st Street, windows down, music blasting.
Let me play that again for you. This is my morning anthem, and it should be everybody's morning anthem. Y'all listening? Now we can interview.
Artis Coley was sipping coffee and short on sleep that morning. Altgeld Gardens had been lit up with celebratory gunfire into the wee hours, he said. And before that, he was at Obama's victory rally in Grant Park. The crowd was so diverse, he said, it was almost like being in Martin Luther King days. On that historic day, we asked Artis, how might the world change? How might this country change? His answer was matter of fact.
And just because we have a black president and a new president doesn't mean anything's going to change overnight. So, I mean, not even in a few years. I say it's so much of a big mess that it's going to take at least 2 terms for any president to fix this problem we're in now.
Our president, Barack Obama, he did it.
4 years ago, Laquita Salter was bursting with joy when we bumped into her on her way into work. She was then, and still is today, the laundry attendant at one of Altgeld's 4 laundromats. Residents aren't allowed to have washers and dryers in their units, so these laundromats are well used and double as kind of an informal neighborhood meeting spot. Laquita's place is brightly lit and sparkling clean.
Hey!
Laquita,
Yes.
your hairstyle is different.
Yes, it's different. I changed it up a little bit.
Laquita tells us that these days she's on Team Obama-Biden and has been registering her neighbors to vote. She makes regular trips downtown carrying paperwork to the Board of Election Commissioners. The White House will never be the same, she says, because now it's full of swag.
I see his swag as he is cool, down to earth. He eat collard greens. He playing basketball. It's not just the golf course up in there and soccer and all that. We doing it.
So there's been change at the White House, but Salter thinks there's been change at Altgeld too.
We got good schools out here. We got the clinic out here. We got a library out here now. You know what I'm saying? It's love out here. It's nothing like, oh, the garden's this, the garden's bad. And no, it's bad everywhere you go in America. But you don't see Altgeld Gardens on the news, do you?
A patron at the laundromat, Jerome Williams, has drifted over to join our conversation. I ask if he plans to vote.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely vote.
Yeah. And who are you voting for?
Obama. No question.
Was that a dumb question on my part?
No, not really.
I mean, there might be some people here who aren't. Is that right?
Right, you're right about that.
Actually, I wasn't too right about that. Later, I checked the numbers. Turns out that in 2008, there were 5 precincts covering Altgeld Gardens and a little beyond. In those precincts, about 1,900 ballots were cast, and only 12 were from McCain.
Good boy, good boy.
This is Obama country, something that Cheryl Johnson knows for sure.
Come here. Come here.
Johnson is head of PCR, People for Community Recovery. It's a 33-year-old environmental justice organization that rallies residents around community issues. Could be anything from PCBs in the soil to the need for a new neighborhood school.
He's sick. He got look how big his stomach is.
Really? What does that mean?
Starvation.
Oh, the stomach gets bloated?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. A forlorn pit bull's been lingering outside Cheryl's office. We all start feeding him. Cheryl leans in and points out his bruises.
That's probably fighting.
Fighting, yeah.
And he's scared.
Inside Cheryl's office, we see pictures of her mother, Hazel, who's passed away since we visited the gardens 4 years ago. In Hazel Johnson's day, she met with presidents and governors and led politicians on toxic tours of her neighborhood. When Rich and I talked with her in 2008, she told us about a guy who worked with her on a campaign to get rid of asbestos insulation in the attics at Altgeld. He was a young Barack Obama.
Now, when I was working with him, I never had no idea. I know he was an ambitious young man. He was nice, polite, very mannerable. But I never, I know he was wanted to go beyond what he was already. But I had no idea that he would go that far.
Today, Hazel's daughter, Cheryl, has new problems to contend with. She walks us over to what's called Block 16, 2 minutes from her office.
Well, you can't get in front of it because it's all gated in. All the vacancies are gated in.
I see. That's some of them right there.
Right.
Cheryl is pointing to an eerie view of brick row houses that are boarded up and abandoned. The scene is a little haunting. You can almost feel the presence of the people who used to live there. Altgeld, after all, was originally built to house African American soldiers returning from World War II. And how many are we talking about?
648 units.
In 1999, when the Chicago Housing Authority launched its plan for transformation, the goal was to rehab all 2,000 units at Altgeld Gardens. 11 years later, by 2010, 1,323 of the units had indeed been rehabbed. That's 66% of the original goal. Today, there are about 3,700 people living in Altgeld, and that's where the number may stay. Because in the last few years, all rehab has stopped. And now the CHA is considering demolition of all those units that are vacant and never got fixed. I asked Cheryl Johnson what she thinks of that idea.
It's sad because affordable housing for low-income, working class, and the poor needs these units. They need to be back online.
What is the thinking process?
You know what? I would like to be that fly on the wall. The only rationale that I can really think of is that they really ran out of money to fix up these units.
In an email to WBEZ, CHA confirms that it's considering demolition of those 648 vacant units at Altgeld Gardens. In fact, this proposal is mentioned as a possibility in CHA's annual plan that was just sent to the federal agency HUD a few weeks ago. CHA says it's considering this demolition because the agency believes the quality of life for residents can be enhanced through new kinds of development. CHA points out the need for both commercial and institutional services, which in plain English means additions like a grocery store and a daycare center. In the next few weeks, CHA will hold a meeting to engage residents in planning for their development. First order of business, to hire an urban planner to nudge the process along. One of the ideas being tossed around is to build a new town center, though it isn't clear what that will include. I asked Cheryl what will happen if the CHA decides to build a new town center, build other new supports for the community, but also decides to tear down the 648 units.
With the support of the community and the external community that we have created, it's going to be really hard for them to tear these units down without a fight.
So if it ever came to bulldozers coming out here,
I'd be one of the first standing in front of the bulldozer.
We stopped by Cheryl Johnson's office to say goodbye to everyone and end up chatting with her assistant, Georgia Curtis. Georgia's one of the people who was trying to help that pit bull. That poor dog is still following her around.
They done starved him. No, and he's a friendly dog.
Georgia does volunteer work for People for Community Recovery, Cheryl Johnson's group.
We have to hustle and get buses for our community to go here, to go there, you know, the whole 9 yards. So, and I have learned so much by coming up here. You know, I've learned so many things. I couldn't even get on the computer on and off, couldn't type any of that, answer phone, the whole business.
Much as Georgia embraces her volunteer job, it galls her that she can't find work that offers a weekly paycheck. Outsiders don't much know this, but the CHA has a work requirement. Officials say the agency spends $25 million a year on social services to help adults between the ages of 18 and 54 make the transition to the working world. There are some exceptions, but residents have to work or go to school or volunteer for 30 hours a week in order to remain in public housing. Some residents tell us they've seen the CHA's program land people in real paid jobs. Others, like Georgia, find it demeaning that she's required to work a job that doesn't pay.
You all are paying them to ridicule me in a sense, and I end up with the short end of the stick because I don't have anything. But you go home, and every Friday or every other Friday, you draw a check down. So, come on now. That's crazy.
The day is starting to get away from us. Rich and I say our goodbyes and start heading towards the center of Altgeld. If the CHA is going to tear down stuff to build a new town center, we want to see what's there now. So we walk, and of course, we get sidetracked.
Hello, how you doing?
We talk to mothers holding the hands of their young children and shooing them along. We talk to a high school girl who dreams of seeing the world.
Oh, that's Paris. That's the best scenery ever, I guess. I would love to go down. That's my dream.
We pass middle school girls who tell us where they want to attend high school.
I'm going to Juliet or Cobb Military. Gwendolyn Brooks, Minnesota.
Minnesota?
She ain't going to Minnesota. She's been saying that since we was in kindergarten. She ain't never go. I am going.
One place we see has miniature Halloween ghosts lining the sidewalk all the way up to the front door. We meet Samaria Rogers, who's out in front conducting a science experiment.
I am doing a project at school. Is what happens when you mix baking soda and vinegar in a bloom.
Right next door, Marguerite Jacobs is prepping for her new farmer's market. On Saturdays from 9 to 3, she brings fresh, reasonably priced vegetables to a community that still has no grocery store.
The kids came through already and touched the peas and asked why there's so many colors and why do the sweet potatoes still have the dirt on it, because when I go to the store, these some dirty sweet potatoes. So we're really getting them to understand that dirt is not bad and you have to clean your food and stuff like that.
On our walk, we pass a new charter high school, a new charter elementary, and we visit the new public library.
Though we're a small location, we're probably one of the fewer locations that have a plethora of computers.
The library, the charter schools, the community fought for those institutions and won. We can see all the new building that's appeared since 2008. Now we're approaching what's called Uptop, a seedier part of Altgeld. This part of the development looks the same as when we saw it in 2008, or even worse. The long, low buildings look decrepit. Many in the community consider this section of Altgeld an eyesore, which could be why CHA is talking about building a new town center here. We've come to a long breezeway that adjoins a fast food joint and a tiny store that sells liquor, candy, and chips. But there's also something in this breezeway that has deep significance.
Look here. This is a wall right here that means a lot to us.
That's our introduction to Joel Johnson, Vietnam vet, 60 years old. He's lived at the Gardens since 1958. He's showing Rich and me a brick wall painted yellow. Printed in bold black paint are the names of many of Altgeld's dead.
We really don't want this wall to be ever torn down or destroyed because, hey, this wall means something to us. You know, it's a lot of brothers, sisters that died up here. My brothers, my family, a lot of their names up here.
I asked how long the wall's been up.
It's been up here, wow, since 1960s. This right here is the original part at the top.
I have heard that CHA is talking about tearing down this whole structure of buildings to build a new town center. And that means that goes too.
That's exactly what they're saying they're going to do. But that's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you that now.
And it's not just you who feels like that.
The whole community.
I asked Joel Johnson, if Obama is reelected, what advice would you give him?
First thing Mr. President of the United States should do is this. You can always tell people, why don't you stop selling drugs and all that. If you don't have anything to do for these individuals, nothing's going to come about it. You have to have a structured situation where the community can have something for the young men, young ladies to do.
I hear you.
If they don't have anything to do, how can they structure themselves?
Anybody want to do an interview? There's a craps game down at the other end of the breezeway. Edward Johnson, no relation to the Joel Johnson we just talked to, is watching the game but breaks away to talk with us. We're just getting started when he interrupts me and calls out to the others. We've been coming back one time every year.
Mavericks. That means the police.
I'm sorry, what was that about the police?
They coming.
How do you know?
We know the police. They say break it up. Okay, break it up then.
It's illegal to bet money while shooting dice, so the gaggle of men immediately begins to disperse. And so does the man I'm interviewing, even though he wasn't playing. Break it up.
Break it up.
Break what up?
I'm sorry. Break it up.
Don't go. Oh no, nothing's breaking up. Sir, excuse me, officer?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm interviewing this gentleman. He seems to think we can't do an interview. Why does he think that?
I don't know, ask him.
Sir, it's perfectly fine. He said it's fine. He said it's fine.
I'm going to say.
This is America, as far as I know, last time I checked.
Yeah, this is America.
After the officers have gone, Johnson tells us that sometimes the gambling can escalate.
It gets real big.
But, you know, I feel like
shooting might start, or fighting might start, arguments. You know, they don't want a crowd around here. You know, they have to keep it down.
It's pushing on dusk. We wrap up at the breezeway and head to the home of Tyrone Nelson. 4 years ago, when he heard that Obama had won, he shed some tears of joy. But he was realistic about what he thought Obama could accomplish.
I think some things are going to change, but I don't think it's going to be overnight. We'll be fooling ourselves if we thought that.
When we met Tyrone back in 2008, he was living with his mother, who was 94. Flash forward 4 years, and he's still caring for her. She turns 99 next week, and her blood pressure is lower than his.
I took it this morning. It was 118 over 70.
When the conversation turns to Obama, he says he'd give him a B.
But I think we're mature enough now to know that one person, you know, can't do it by himself, you know, or even one party for that matter, you know. And we have seen that some of the programs that Obama tried to put forward was fought tooth and nail, you know, in the Congress. And so some of his programs, you know, didn't get through because, you know, we had some people just wanting him to be a one-term president. You know, they had no other reason, you know, but they just wanted him to fail.
Sometime during our conversations today, I received a text from Artis Coley. Remember him? He's the guy who was blasting music from his car the morning after Obama was elected. He's been out of town and didn't think we'd be able to meet up with him, but he tells us to wait at the laundromat and that his bus will arrive around 6. It's fully dark now, and we're just sort of hanging out in front of Tyrone's place, which just happens to be across the street from the laundromat where we need to be. And while we're waiting for Artis's bus to arrive, the very officers we'd seen earlier in the day pull up alongside us to ask where we're from and what we're doing.
This is my partner, Eric Davis.
So we make some introductions, and it turns out these guys are with Maverick Security. One of the officers, J.C. Hill, knows Altgeld very well. As a boy, he spent 15 summers out here living with his uncle.
When I was assigned out here, I was only glad to come out here, you know, because, you know, I knew these people. These were my people.
Hill's partner, Eric Davis, retired after 27 years with the Chicago Police.
And I come and work my community. So I'm not just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk.
Officer Davis confirms what we've been told, that Altgeld is a somewhat isolated community. But in some ways, he says, it's not so different from the North Shore.
I would guess that 80% of the folks that live here in Altgeld don't know anyone white. Don't know anyone white. But to be fair, I bet if I went to Winnetka, maybe 70% of the white people there don't know anyone black. So is that something that's really crazy in America? Absolutely. That is crazy. There are people that travel the world to come to cities like Chicago and New York because they want to see our diversity. We live here and we don't want to see diversity.
Both these officers seem to know a lot of people around here. And one lady who's walking by stops to give an unsolicited testimonial.
These guys are cool as hell because they're still law enforcement officers, but they respecting us in a different manner. They're not bogarting us.
Sometime in the middle of all this, there's a little do-si-do. Officer Davis leaves, and Artis Coley has joined Officer Hill and us. We ask how people at Altgeld make it. How do they survive in these crazy economic times? Census Bureau numbers say that median household income at Altgeld is about $13,000. And most everyone we've talked to today has estimated that 60 to 70% of the adult community here is unemployed.
I'm going to say this, blacks are really resourceful.
We can make something out of nothing. See, for those that was already wealthy and rich and not used to living in poverty, it was a big deal to them. Nothing really changed to us. We've been living this and have been experiencing this since I was young, since government cheese programs.
I tell them that we heard from a woman who sells some of her food stamps in order to scrape together enough rent money to keep her unit at CHA.
I wouldn't incriminate myself like that because that's a crime.
There are lots of people in America on food stamps, 46 million in fact. And Artis asks,
you think she's the only one doing that to get by? All race, all color, all nationality.
We stand out here on the sidewalk talking for like an hour. We talk about Obama, the election, and these guys keep circling back to Altgeld itself.
You should see them in the summertime. It's beautiful. cookout on every block. You know, there's a jumping jack thing in every block.
He actually brings them and don't let us have to pay for them.
I've worked all 4th of Julys because I want to be out here.
This talk can go on and on. So we make an informal pact. Meet up again for the next election.
Together here 4 years, and we're going to make a pact now that we're going to do this in 4 years.
So we're meeting up in 4 years, right?
4 years.
Yeah. President is black, my Lambo's blue.
Who knows? After all, we met Ortiz 4 years ago when he rolled down 131st Street, blasting Lil Jeezy's song, My President. Who's to say we may not meet here again 4 years from now?
Tell him I'm doing fine, Obama for mankind. We ready for
With Richard Cahan from Altgeld Gardens, this is Linda Paul.
Feeling just like a king. Guess this is what he meant when he said that he had a dream. My Lambo